My name's Ruth and I'm a writer. I suppose I've always wanted to be a writer. I remember writing poems and short stories when I was very young. And when I was 14, my English teacher asked generally what everybody wanted to do when they got older, when they left school. And I said I wanted to be a writer. And I remember that very distinctly because at the time I wanted to be a journalist, possibly a foreign war correspondent or something very exciting, or something to get me out of the area where I grew up in the north of England. It wasn't until I moved to America and I got the chance to write a weekly column for the newspaper where I grew up, where I'd grown up reading the newspaper. And I made a proposal to the editor and suggested that I write a column about living in America, the differences and the similarities with America and British or Irish life. He accepted that proposal and I ended up writing a weekly column for about a year and a half. So that started my writing career. The project I'm working on at the moment started back in St. Paul in Minnesota, where I used to live, and it was just after we bought a house there that we discovered a lot of items still left in the house by the previous owner. One of those items was a wooden box full of letters, postcards, and photographs of the previous owner's father. He was, the building that we bought used to be a grocery store, and a lot of the things that were left in the garage there were wrapped up in butcher's string and left very neatly. The previous owner decided that she didn't want some of the items, so she left them there and said we could do what we wanted with them. We could throw them away or we could keep them or look at them. And over the years, I've looked at the letters mainly because they're the most interesting. And the majority of them were written between the years of 1916 and 1919. 1917 is when America joined the First World War. And that's the content of most of the letters written by men who were called doughboys at the time. And they were all written to the previous owner's father, whose name was George. So he kept all of these letters, and over the years I've looked into them and tried to figure out what they were about and who was who and who was writing the letters. And at first I thought I would just put them into a book of letters with a little bit of background, but I found out that I couldn't do that because the content of the letters belonged to the original person who wrote them, their descendants. It's their intellectual property. So even though I own the letters themselves, I don't own the content or the writing that's in them. So what I've done instead is tried to write a novel around the characters that have come up out of the letters and about George and his journey from St. Paul, Minnesota, all the way to France and eventually Germany as part of the American forces in the First World War.